Hi, my name's Braden Whittington. I'm our project engineering team lead on our air moving team, and today we're going to be talking about one of the exciting tools that we have available for Revit. So once the RippleHVAC tool has been downloaded for your Revit file, it'll have a lot of valuable tools that can be used to enhance your workflow. But the two tools that we're going to be focusing on today are the AutoZoning as well as VAV AutoSelection tool. So to highlight these tools, we're going to be looking at a two-story school. So this is going to be broken out into different classrooms, office spaces, as well as larger spaces such as a gymnasium. And in order to be able to use these AutoZoning as well as VAV AutoSelection tool, the only requirement is that these spaces have been defined. So ensuring that we've listed what airflows are required for those spaces, what loads are going to be required, as well as the classification type. And as we can see here in our properties window, each of these spaces will have these listed out. And after those spaces have been defined, we then can look at using our AutoZoning tool. So once the AutoZoning tool has been selected, a pop-up window will show up on your screen. So it's going to be asking you some different questions in terms of what zoning criteria or ruling is going to be used for your air handler as well as your VAVs. So from an air handler's perspective, just breaking these out into different classification types in which it's going to be serving. And then from a VAV perspective, also enabling the user to integrate different zoning rules that's going to be used for those products. So for example, if you had a VAV or different spaces that are going to have similar loads in which it would be serving, having a singular VAV that be serving each of these spaces could be inputted into the software. And from there, it's worth mentioning as well that the different ventilation requirements that are being used for this ruling as well as classification types are going to be based off of ASHRAE 62.1 standards. And after those have been selected or inputted into this pop-up banner, we can then look at zoning these AHUs and VAVs by selecting this button. And boom, what we'll see on screen here for both our level 1 and 2 for our floor plans is that our air handlers and VAVs have been assigned for those settings. Not to say that that is what the end user has to use for once those have been assigned for each of those spaces. What can also be done is you can change those parameters after the fact, but just a good initial selection tool that can be utilized for just zoning out your VAVs and air handlers quickly and effectively for your Revit file. So now that all these zones have been established for both the air handlers and VAVs that are serving this space, we can now look at using the VAV AutoSelection tool. This VAV AutoSelection tool is going to be able to size VAVs for each of these zones based off of the unit size that it's going to be selecting for it, but then also based off of what reheat accessory might also be required. So after the VAV AutoSelection tool has been selected, another pop-up window will show up on screen. So here it's going to be listing how that VAV is going to be selected for the space. So things such as what heat source is being used for the product, whether it be a hot water coil or electric coil, information about the space that it's going to be installed in, as well as what selection criteria is going to be used for that heat source. For example, for the hot water coil, what entering temperatures are being used for entering air as well as entering water for the unit, what fluid types being used, and then also having the ability of selecting what attenuation media is going to be used for that product. It's worth mentioning for this auto selection tool that it's always going to be targeting a leaving air temperature for keeping that in mind as you're batch selecting these VAVs. And once all this information has been inputted into this pop-up window, we can then look at selecting these VAVs by hitting Batch Select VAVs. So now that all these VAVs have batch selected, they're going to be placed directly into the center of each of these zones that they can be adjusted or moved after the fact based off of what your ceiling requirements look like. It's going to be sizing each of these VAVs to the duct size or inlet size that's going to be required, as well as the row of coil that's going to be required to achieve your airflow requirements that have been set for each of these loads of the space, as well as the row of coil that would be required for that as well. So after all the VAVs have been selected through the AutoSelection tool, another exciting feature that can be available to you through this Ripple tool is the ability to have a fully dynamic schedule for all the VAVs that have been placed. So as we'll see on screen here, we'll notice that there's a fully dynamic schedule for all those VAVs that have been selected into this file, and listing different information about that product, such as what airflows have been selected, information about the heat source, so in this case that hot water coil, what performance that hot water coil is providing, as well as acoustical information too. And similar to Excel, you can hide or delete columns that you don't want listed in your schedule, and this can be saved so each time that you use this tool, it's always going to have that standardized format for your file. Also, if you want to look up different units within your file, you'll also have the ability to highlight that in the model. So whether you're changing what airflows have been selected for that unit or changing its sizes, you easily can access where this has been placed in your file to adjust it accordingly as well. Thanks for tuning into our video today. If you do have any questions about this or any other softwares, feel free to reach out to our team here at Price.